Today's video is sponsored by tricking yourself into thinking that free-handed circles was a good idea. Hello again team, it's Jess or JashiiCorrin, and welcome back for another monthly plan with me. In today's video, I'm going to be setting up for September 2019, but before we get into that, as per usual, we're just going to have a look at how August was going. So as you'll remember from my last monthly plan with me video, for August I was going with a back to school theme. Having a flip through my pages, we had the splash page, monthly log, my August bucket list and mood tracker, habits and steps trackers, my social media scheduler, and then my challenge page, and my meal log. After this, we're on to my weekly spreads, and the first one we had was a recreation of an old weekly. We then had one where I used my non-preferred hand, so my left hand. My weekly spread where I used colours I don't particularly like. My current weekly, which was done using only highlighters. And then next week, which is a one-page weekly. For September, I've decided that my theme is going to be space. And although usually when people do space themes, the colour palette kind of revolves around black and darker blues and purples and sometimes pinks, I decided that for mine I wanted to go with blue and gold. Because I already know that September is going to be a pretty busy month for me, I've decided that I want to make most of my decoration quite simple, and my spreads pretty easy to fill in. Before we jump into it, just a reminder that as per usual, any of the equipment I use in today's setup is linked in the description box below. But let's get started. Up first was my cover page. As I mentioned, for September, I wanted to try and keep my decoration a bit more simple, so I started by putting down a yellow stripe using the 025 Tombow, and then wrote September over the top in simple all caps. Initially this is where I was going to leave the cover, but I thought it might be nice to have a tad more decoration. Using a pencil first, I went and put in some 5-point and diamond-shaped stars, as well as some small circles. It wasn't a lot of effort, but I really do think that it makes this cover page not so bland. Up next we have my monthly log. As I mentioned in both July and August, I do really love the dingbats for how I'm able to fit a nice big calendar style layout across these double pages. Each of my daily boxes is 7 squares by 7 squares, and this gives me plenty of room to write down my events for the coming month. As the dingbats is 28 squares across on each page, this also gives me the 7 square wide panel on the side, which you could use for something like a to-do list, or notes, or maybe a tracker of some description. But as I've been doing, I'm just using this for decoration. For the headings that I used in today's setup, I used a combination of both lowercase cursive and all caps block letters. It is really kind of nice to see how you can give a spread more visual interest by just using a combination of two relatively straightforward lettering styles. So that the headers still look cohesive even though I'm using different styles of lettering, for both of them I used my M-sized Pit Artist pen, so at least then they were the same thickness. For my decoration on the panel in the right, along with my hanging stars and eventually a little hanging rocket, the quote that I decided to put was, "Stars can't shine without darkness." I thought this was a nice thing to remember for the month coming, because I can already sense that it's going to be stressful. As I mentioned, I know I have a lot of things coming up, particularly the fact that each one of my senior classes has a full topic to learn, and ideally we'll be finished with the content of all of those before they go on holidays at the end of September. Much like my other favourite quote from this year, which is, "I have done hard things and I can do hard things," I'm hoping that having this little reminder that challenges aren't necessarily a bad thing will help me maintain my perspective this month coming. In terms of the colouring I'm doing at the moment, I really liked having my little apples as decoration for the days of the month in my August calendar, so I decided to do stars for September. After laying down the Tombow and then writing out the numbers with my Pit Artist pen, I then outlined each little star using a Staedtler Tri Plus fine liner just to make them look a little bit more defined. On to the most time-consuming spread for this setup, we have my September bucket list and mood tracker pages. Don't get me wrong, I totally love how these pages turned out, but they certainly were the most time-consuming to complete. You'll notice that on both of these pages I make really good use of my circular stencil from Stettler. That stencil is honestly one of the most useful pieces of bullet journaling equipment I own. It has circles that range from 2 to 45 millimeters in diameter, and for sure it came in handy when drawing out each of the planets that I have on this spread. On my mood tracker in particular, it was great to have so many different sized circles that I could use, as this meant that my page ended up having a lot more visual interest than otherwise. For my September bucket list, as usual, I've given myself space for 9 bucket list items. Now as I'm also using the power sheets, I'm likely going to make these items more fun-focused than strictly goal-related. Not to say that I haven't had fun things on my previous 2 monthly bucket lists, but now as I have the tending lists for each month in my power sheets, I want to make sure that I'm putting goal-related things there, and using this page for other things that I might want to do or experience. I haven't quite decided on my bucket list items for September just yet, but when I have, I'll be writing those inside of each of the planets, and once I've done or achieved them, I'll colour that planet in. Out of curiosity, do you guys have any goals or bucket list type items coming up for you in September? I always really enjoy finding out more about what you guys have going on, so feel free to let me know in the comments below. The quote we have at the bottom of the page just says, "Shoot for the moon, even if you miss, you'll land among the stars." I know that's probably the most typical quote to put in a space-related setup, but I also think that it's nice to remember that trying is worthwhile. Big progress happens with small steps, people, and even if you don't make it all the way, you'll still be further than where you started. As you can see, for my mood tracker, I'm just using that circle stencil again to draw in all of these different sized planets coming out in a spiral from the sun at the center. I numbered these 1 through 30, starting with the one that was closest to the center and working my way out. Just trying to figure out the layout that I wanted on this page was a giant mission. As you guys probably know by now, I like my journal pages to look balanced. So I'll normally gravitate towards patterns and regular arrangements of elements and boxes. And as part of that, I find irregular arrangements of shapes, while still maintaining balance, really hard to achieve. Just drawing out the pencil spiral in to start with was a damn mission, because I really wanted the spacing between each neighbouring curve to be the same. I think the effort was worth it though, because this one in particular I really feel ended up looking quite good. Down the bottom I just put my key using all 6 colours that I've selected for this month's colour palette. This one has blue as my positive moods and yellow as my negative moods, so dark blue being the best mood and dark yellow being the worst. At this stage I still felt that the page needed a little bit more decoration. So on every second planet I decided to go and add in a pattern or a ring just to make each of these ones look a little bit different to the one next to it. I felt this made the page look a lot more finished, though it was still really simple to do. As I've mentioned before, I don't get a huge amount of useful information out of my mood trackers, but I do always love having a page that's a little bit more decorative than functional each month. Up next it was onto my habits and steps trackers. As you saw at the start of this video, by this point I felt that, oh yep, I've gotten enough practice with the stencils, I can totally freehand 10 individual circles. Little did I know that I was completely wrong. After failing at attempting to draw and then attempting to fix my little son, I got my stencil out again to draw out where he was supposed to be and coloured in the bump on the right in black. At that stage I wasn't too sure how I was going to fix my mishap, but later on I just end up going in and making it look like I have an intentional black blob around the sun. To fill in my steps tracker for September, much like I did with the pencils in August, I'm going to have a little rocket doodle at the point along the page which represents how many steps I did. And I'm also going to draw in a dotted line from the launching pad, or the box that houses the numbers for each day of the month, going to that rocket. This means that at the end of September, I'll end up with a bar graph that shows me the days I did a good amount of stepping, and the days that weren't so good. For my habit tracker, I've brought back the vertical grid style that I've enjoyed using previously. With the way I've spaced it out, I have enough columns for 13 habits, as each column takes up 2 spaces across. I haven't decided at this stage what my habits will be, but once I have, I've left myself space at the top to draw out icons to represent each of those. Up next we have my meal log, which is taking the same form as usual, with columns to record breakfast, lunch, dinner, and snacks. To make sure that the columns on each side are equally spaced, I put the 2 columns in for the number and initial for each day of the month on both pages of the spread. This means that each column for recording my meals will have 6.5 centimeters of space, rather than the ones on the left having 6.5, while the ones on the right have 7. Although it's only a difference of 1 square, it still does manage to bother me. Another spread that is remaining pretty much unchanged from August is that for my social media scheduler and monthly challenges pages. In terms of my September challenges, my health challenge is getting 7,000 steps each day, and I already know that for me this is going to be a challenge. On the other hand, my money challenge is going to be having a home-packed lunch each day. This one was supposed to be my challenge for August, but then I remembered that August was also the month for Wellington on a plate, so I was likely going to be having a fair few meals out with my department, which is why I decided to move it to September. For both of these challenges, just like I did in August, I have a box for each day of the month that I can colour in once or if I achieve those goals. As I mentioned last month, I find it way more motivating to have these dedicated challenge pages rather than putting these on my monthly habit trackers. I found that by making their own special page for tracking, I have a much better success rate with these, meaning that I get them done more days than not when you compare them to the rest of my habits that I track. For my social media scheduler, as per usual, I just have a space on the left for my Instagram posting, and then the spaces on the right are for my YouTube posting and my growth tracker. Although I've already got some ideas of videos I want to be making for September, if you guys have anything in particular that you'd like to see, I would, as usual, love to hear about it. As you've probably already heard too many times from me, I want to post things that you guys are actually interested in seeing. So when you comment with suggestions of videos you'd like me to make, it really does help me out. For September, I've also decided to bring back my gratitude log. For this one, I'm setting it up more in the style of a 2 lines a day spread, rather than the 1-page lettering and doodling style of gratitude log that I'd normally use. Again, if you watched my Power Sheets videos, you'll know that I'm trying to make my mental health more of a priority moving forward, and one of the ways I'm doing this is through a daily gratitude habit. Honestly, I'm pretty damn pleased with how all of these pages came out for September. I really like the blue and yellow combination, and stars are one of my favourite things to draw. I'd love to know what your theme is in your journal for September, if you have one of course. I've already decided on my theme for October, but November could always use some ideas. If you wanted to let us know what your theme is, do drop it in the comments below. Also, I don't usually mention this, but if you do recreate any of my spreads and post them somewhere like Instagram, it would be so awesome if you tagged me in them so that I can check out how you guys are using them in your journal. When you guys like something that I create enough to make it for yourself in your journal, honestly, that feels pretty awesome. So as a final flip through, we have my splash page, monthly log, September bucket list and mood tracker, habits and steps trackers, my meal log, social media scheduler and challenge pages, and my gratitude log. I'm already pretty much in love with the spreads I have as part of this month, and hopefully I'll be able to continue the blue and gold colour theme throughout my weekly pages as well. Thank you for watching, team. If you liked today's video, please do make sure to give it a big thumbs up, and if you wanted to see more from me, feel free to go check out one of my other videos. Until next time, bye!